This is lecture number DR031WS05. This is the 31st of the Mega Genius lectures and the 5th lecture of the Whole Truth series. It was recorded on November 22nd, 2000. The title of this lecture is Identifying the Enemy. It is 36 minutes long. Copyright 2000 by Mega Genius. All rights reserved. This lecture is protected by internationally valid copyright. It may not, in whole or in part, be duplicated, transmitted, or otherwise reproduced without the express permission of Mega Genius. Unauthorized translation, importation, or distribution is a violation of applicable laws. Mega Genius is a United States federally registered trademark and service mark. And now, here is Mega Genius.
Let's examine the point that what you don't know is the only thing that can hurt you, in a unique manner, through the eyes of an entity who sees less truth than you. For several years I lived in Malibu, California, and could give you another series of lectures about that. I had a double yellow-headed Amazon parrot named Amazing Grace, whom I had hand-fed for the first few weeks after birth with an eyedropper. That technique ensures that the parrot will become exceptionally tame and remain affectionate. Gracie did. As she grew, she transformed from a repulsive-looking parasite — did you ever see an infant parrot? — into an elegant, green-bodied, yellow-headed little darling. She had the intelligence of a 5-year-old child and the personality of a 2-year-old, and considered me her equal. Gracie merely tolerated the other inhabitants of my residence. They included 2 African gray parrots, Julie, named after singer and actress Julie London, who had once performed a kind favor for me, and Rex, who imagined he was of royal heritage and expected treatment accordingly. Julie was captured in the wild, in Ghana, Africa, and tamed by me. Julie trusted no one but me and Rex. He was her surrogate protector. The cock of the walk, though, was Evita, a blue-fronted Amazon parrot. She considered that the world was her domain, and every life form within sight, human or otherwise, her slave. Evita took strong exception to any interference with that viewpoint. On the other hand, Gracie knew that she was human. She also knew that I was her best friend. Therefore she ignored the foolishness of her own genus, and looked to humans, especially me, for companionship. As long as I treated her in accordance with all the rights guaranteed any other person by the Constitution of the United States of America, she was happy. I used to take her with me as I drove along the Los Angeles freeways, and to Big Bear Lake, and to Death Valley, and on long walks through the San Bernardino Mountains, almost every place I could. Most of all, Gracie liked the beach. The late television actor and producer Michael Landon had some parrots too, which he boarded at the same parrot hotel that I used whenever I was traveling. Mike's parrots included a scarlet macaw named Rainbow and 2 Amazons named Freddie and Fritz. Although Gracie considered them subhuman, admittedly a fact, at least she was willing to play with them any time humans were unavailable. What Gracie craved, though, was human contact. The more the better. I once let her spend the whole afternoon playing in the sun with Mike and his family, my friend Steve Rubin, and me. Gracie figured that life didn't get much better and didn't want to leave. I considered outings of that sort to be rewards for her good behavior. Gracie, on the other hand, knew they were privileges to which she was inherently entitled. Near the edge of my property one day, Gracie made a critical mistake. I had always kept her flight feathers trimmed for her own safety. She knew that she could fly only a short distance. This day, Gracie forgot. With a strong ocean breeze blowing on shore, Gracie sprung from my shoulder and soared on the wind. Over a fence she sailed into the spacious compound of a neighbor. Fortunately, Gracie landed in a tree in the distance. Unfortunately, she could not fly back again against the continuous ocean breeze. She would have had to have landed on the ground and walked back to me, which she knew would probably have been a fatal mistake. Malibu is a rural setting, indigenous to even coyotes, lynx, and cougars. I was on friendly terms with the neighbor, but could not reach Gracie without the owner's express permission. There were 2 reasons. The first was that residents of Malibu are a different breed. They include television and motion picture stars, producers and directors, celebrated sports figures, and many who are, well, just different. Some of my neighbors were the nicest that one could ever hope to meet. Conversely, some residents reminded me of former Soviet Deputy Premier Andrei Gromyko, who was not known for his charitable deeds to baby bunnies. He probably daydreamed about skinning a Tyrannosaurus Rex alive. For instance, his wife was once asked to compare her husband and her son. She replied, quote, "The difference is that when they go hunting, my son gives the ducks a chance to rise from the water." Unquote. Some residents of Malibu can be a bit like Andrei Gromyko. The second reason I needed permission was that many residents there treasure their privacy. Strangely, however, some have little respect for yours. Malibu is the only place I've had my life and liberty threatened by someone who thought that by asking him to stop bothering me, I was infringing on his pursuit of happiness. Incidentally, I eventually took my case with that particular neighbor to the judicial system and accomplished my objective while acting as my own attorney. I only spent $30 in filing fees, while his attorney charged him $5,000 for allegedly defending him. After several other similar incidents, I began to take a good look at my neighbors. I don't live in Malibu anymore. The estate into which Gracie had flown was a fortress. Apparently it had served well to protect a previous owner who survived an assassination attempt one night when it was stormed by an elite troop of foreign terrorists. I didn't know whether the current owner had made the same assassination squad's hit list, but she certainly could have given lessons in inaccessibility to Greta Garbo. I know something about the security system at the Fort Knox Gold Depository at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I have entered the facility and examined some of it. My neighbor may have taken her own lessons from them. Even for Malibu, her security measures were extraordinary. They included a band of armed guards that continuously patrolled the estate, both on foot and in vehicles. Backing up this was an array of sophisticated electronics. That's not all. Did you ever see a sign, quote, "Trespassers will be eaten," unquote? On my street, it was no warning. It was a guarantee. Galloping throughout the grounds were lion dogs. The only other time I've seen such a beast was when I was introduced to one, just keep it way over there where I can see it, by the late Lawrence Jungle Larry Tetzlaff, founder of Jungle Larry's Safari Island at Cedar Point, Ohio, and Jungle Larry's African Safari Park in Naples, Florida. Larry was a kind and continually amusing friend who used to double for Johnny Weissmuller in Tarzan motion pictures, wrestle alligators underwater, and capture, before the days of tranquilizer guns, tame and train the gamut of wild animals throughout Africa and the Amazon jungle. Adult lion dogs stand nearly 5 feet high and look like ponies with teeth like grizzlies. When their eyes focus on you, you know what a dog biscuit feels like. You can bet that when you train them to attack humans, you have a defense system that works. According to Larry, they were bred to chase down and corner African lions. I believe it. As puppies, their favorite sport is probably fetch the Doberman Pinscher. I wanted to get Gracie back the easy way. Normally it's no problem for me to obtain an unlisted telephone number, but this woman must have considered that the act of having a telephone was an invasion of her privacy. So I approached the grand entrance to her compound, smiled for the television camera, and explained my problem to the invisible security guard. He replied, "I'm sorry, it is not convenient for her to speak to anyone today." Night fell. Eventually the sun shone. Throughout that day it still was not convenient for her. I sent her a letter. There was no reply. Nor was it convenient for her at any time the next day, nor even the next. During that interim, a lengthy rainstorm passed through with high winds. The sudden and prolonged drop in temperature that resulted could easily have become life-threatening for Gracie, especially in conjunction with her rain-soaked feathers and her inability to obtain food. Birds become extremely susceptible to illness when they cannot maintain their body temperature. Birds that are ill, lacking feathers, or stressed by injury often need immediate heat if they are to survive. I knew that Gracie could endure the first 3 days due to her sound health and the strength she had acquired from what had been her normal diet. It was a revolutionary and highly effective formula known as the Cray diet, devised by Dr. Raymond Cray of Southern California, one of the top avian veterinarians in the world. Nevertheless, Gracie would succumb if I could not retrieve her soon. Throughout each day, Gracie called to me for help. It was a loud, distressful plea in the distance. Now that was a risky act for her, due to the wildlife. Her beak could be a formidable defense, but she would need more than that. She would be outclassed by the strength and agility of a cougar, and probably by a lynx that I had recently seen pass within 100 feet of my doorstep. In addition, I was concerned about the red-tailed hawks that circled overhead daily. The primary defense that nature had provided for her, flight, was not an option, for she almost certainly would have been under attack by a variety of predators the moment she touched the ground. Gracie knew. Her eyes scanned the countryside with razor sharpness, and she only called for help at moments when the risk seemed the least. But after the sun had set, and the packs of coyotes and all of their hungry competition had taken the offensive, danger was at its greatest. Then, though cold, wet, and starving, she passed the slowly moving hours in utter silence. Gracie knew. On the 4th day it still was not convenient for my neighbor to communicate. The situation had become critical. I doubted that Gracie could survive another night, at least without severe repercussions. The local law enforcement authorities would not help. They considered it to be a legal matter best left to the courts. The situation required immediate and effective action. I had a choice. One option was to allow Gracie to die. The other option was to penetrate the security, avoid the troops, foil the electronics, watch out for the lion dogs, get Gracie, not get shot, not get disemboweled, and get out. It would not be wise to reveal exactly what all I did. The proverb, "Some things are better left unsaid," is true. I'll just say that shortly after the sun had set, I had Gracie back home and on her perch. No one was hurt, and no property was damaged. No one was the wiser. She was tired, but dry and warm and fed. I was very relieved, although Gracie was not happy. From her viewpoint, I had forsaken her. Her soulmate, her lifelong friend, the love of her life, had abandoned her when she needed help the most. She had always thought I loved her, but discovered that I did not. Her little heart was broken in two. What a painful revelation! Alas, alack! Oh, how the truth does sting! Gracie refused to even look at me for weeks, refused to step on my hand, turned away. The look in her droopy eyes was always one of, "I'm so sad." Time, they say, heals all wounds. Well, that is false. It helps considerably, but never fully heals. Here is a mega truth. Only truth completely heals all wounds. In time, however, she worked her way through the great sadness. The transformation was incredible. No longer was she pitiful. No longer did she grieve. Finally, a light had returned to her eyes. Now, Gracie was mad. More than mad. She was livid. The look in her eyes that I had recognized as, "I'm so sad," had vanished. In its place was, "Now I have to kill him." Again, time helped, and finally Gracie was able to pull herself together and lavish me with contempt. A few months after that she mustered all the understanding a parrot can, and even found it deep within her soul to forgive me. Barely. Now Gracie had learned some truth, and it hurt badly. Of course it was not the truth that was really hurting. It was the falseness that she was not able to see and understand. What you don't know can't hurt you? No, it's precisely the opposite. What Gracie did not know, and only what she did not know, broke her heart. The point is that regardless of the truth you see, the only thing that has ever hurt you, is hurting you now, or will ever hurt you, is what you don't know. Specifically, it is the misunderstandings, erroneous information, careless assumptions, false teachings, illusions, wrong conclusions, lies, etc., that prevent you from seeing more truth. This is a mega-truth. Your only true enemy is your own inability to identify and understand falseness. You can search from the depths of hell to beyond the boundaries of this universe, but you will never discover another true adversary. How formidable is it? It can dash your dreams, destroy your health, ruin your life, kill you repeatedly, and torture you through eternity. Despite its formidableness, since truth is basic and a lie can only occur subsequent to truth, falseness has one, and only one, Achilles heel. It can never be viewed completely, thoroughly, and exactly. Otherwise, you see all the truth of the falseness, and only the truth remains. That is why the genius formula works perfectly. Now, imagine how things would look if you were 99% blind. Now, imagine how things would look if you were 99% blind and delusional. If you can do that, you have an extremely accurate idea of the current state of Homo sapiens. Man is in a far worse state than just being severely blind. If that were all he was, he would have gradually accumulated small but meaningful pieces of truth until he eventually climbed out of his depraved existence and evolved into a far more civilized and knowledgeable species long, long ago. Being practically stone blind, mentally, prevents him from expanding his attention sufficiently and examining thoroughly. But that is only one half of his handicap. The other half is that he hallucinates by assuming that he sees things that really are not there. Imagine wearing a pair of trick glasses with lenses that not only are too dark to see much of anything, but are also so distortional that almost everything appears different from what it really is. That's why the human race acts crazy. You always thought it did, and you were right. A person wearing such trick glasses could, of course, learn to reach and feel with his hands, hear with his ears, smell with his nose, taste with his tongue, and thereby gradually examine more and more of his environment and discover that much of what he assumed was true was not. His reality would then begin to change dramatically, and he would evolve into a considerably higher level of awareness, confidence, and happiness, and understanding. He could even discover that he had trick glasses on his head, and remove them. Soon his friends with their own trick glasses would begin to perceive him as a genius. The situation is not hopeless. Both the blindness and the hallucinations that envelop and steer the lives of all people are solely effects of each person's truth distortion lens. Fortunately, there is a resolution. This is a mega-truth. The genius formula is a workable solution to discover truth. Now, one of the reasons I addressed the Proverbs earlier was so you would see that people commonly delude themselves. For example, they have an innate sense that truth should be simple, although they often erroneously think themselves into the conclusion that it isn't. So, when they hear something simple that is alleged to be true, they mistakenly assume that it probably is. Boy, will that ever cartwheel you down a slippery slope fast. I selected a dozen simple proverbs at random. 7 are false, and only 5 are true. Now that may not be exactly representative of all proverbs, but I'm sure it's close. They are not just babble or speculations by someone with a reservation at the nut house. They are proverbs. Millions of people use them daily to keep their lives and the lives of others aimed down the path of truth. By definition, they are sage, witty, clever, ingenious, intelligent, wise, true. Yet almost 60% are flat out wrong, and nearly half of those are completely backwards. Do you know, research some years ago revealed that if a statement was, quote, clear to the understanding or intelligible, unquote, at least 90% of people selected at random assumed that the statement was, quote, probably true, unquote. So everyone gazes at the twinkling stars in the night sky high above this planet, balanced in deep space, and wonders why everyone on it spins. Well, with thinkingness like that, how could they do anything else? For centuries, people on this planet lived and died convinced that the truth was that Earth was flat. When that was finally established to be false, modern man had the real answer perfected. Life was round, the center of the universe, and contained the only life possible. Today, thanks to a courageous man named Nicholas Copernicus, founder of modern astronomy in the 16th century, modern people think differently. The old answer that they used to think was true stumbled into the ditch and died screeching and convulsing. So now we have the true answer, right? Wrong. We don't even have an answer. None at all. We have a little evidence and many theories, but no answer. If you doubt me, then answer this. What was the question? Was it, where is the center of the universe? What are we the center of? Where exactly are we in relation to the whole universe? Is there life out there somewhere? Is it intelligent? Do they know about us? What was the new question? We had thought that we were the center of everything and that no life existed anyplace else. That simple answer was false. When examined slightly, it fell into the trash heap of history and crashed into transparent fragments like a burned-out light bulb. It was a simple answer, that we were the center of everything. But it must have been false, indeed, for look at all the questions it had been hiding. No, the old answer died painfully and has never been replaced by the proper question. What should it be? Here it is. If there is additional intelligent life somewhere out there, why has none of it contacted us in a manner obvious to everyone? Now you determine the truth to that single question, and you will have more true answers than you will have questions. Just a few centuries ago, inhabitants of the old world were stunned to learn they were not alone on this planet. Now a cognition of greater magnitude is occurring. This is a megatruth. Man is in the process of realizing that he is far from alone in this universe. Nearby star systems will soon be discovered to be teeming with intelligent life forms. Life forms, many of which are strikingly similar in physical appearance to man. So why haven't they contacted us in a manner obvious to everyone? Well, for extremely technical reasons, I won't give you the complete answer at this time, but I will give you an excellent clue that will point you in the proper direction. Any life form does not tend to relate well with any other life form that thinks in an appreciably different manner. For instance, when was the last time you tried to relate well with the inhabitants of a fire ant colony, a wasp colony, a bumblebee hive? Ah, you say, but those are unfriendly social orders, unpredictable, dangerous, vicious. The only way to deal with them is either to destroy them if they bother you, or else keep your distance. What do you think would be likely to occur if an interplanetary spacecraft landed in even a decidedly rural area, such as a rancher's backyard in Utah? Do you think he would grab his rifle and tear out the door to go deer hunting? Or what if it landed in a safe, high-security area of a military base, where the guard on duty had orders to shoot any trespasser resisting arrest? Do you think he would violate his orders and trust that the Uniform Code of Military Justice would somehow get him out of this one? Or what if it landed outside the closest town or city to where you live? Do you think that the folks who live in your area would be content to shoot a photograph? Or do you think that some fool would surely want a dead body that he could easily sell for more dollars than there are holes in his good sense? One would think, however, that the inhabitants of such a spacecraft could surely defend themselves quite effectively, right? Undoubtedly. Yet when was the last time you had anything to gain by trying to help the inhabitants of a fire ant hill, or a wasp colony, or bumblebee hive? Do you think that we might have much to gain if we made a few intelligent adjustments to the way we think about things? Does it stand to reason that if we taught our children and ourselves to think a little more intelligently, to see more truth about life, That we all might therefore act more intelligently? Do you think your family might? Your country? Your planet? Do you often wish that things were different, but it seems that they will never change? It seems? Well, what seems to be true and what is true are often light years apart. The truth is that they can change, but they never will change until people change. Oh yes, people can change. Don't think they cannot. Enough truth will enable anyone to teach an old dog new tricks. Now, planets change for the worse very easily, remarkably easily. It's no trick to elect a politician, magna cum laude, adoring spouse, grinning children, years of political experience, has all the right answers, just needs one more chance to implement them. May even have won by a landslide. What's wrong with that picture? There's only one thing wrong, one tiny, unnoticed, deadly thing wrong. When it comes to truth, he just can't quite figure out how many beans make 5. Electing a leader like that is no trick at all. You know it happens continually. Neither is it any trick to wreck a nation, or go to war, or fail to solve the problems that are driving a country loopy. Changing families and countries and planets for the worse is as easy as counting your beans. The real trick is, how do you change them significantly for the better? That's the cocoa nut that needs husking, and just like opening a cocoa nut that is still within its husk, it is quite a trick unless you know enough truth about how to do it. This is a mega-truth. Planets change significantly for the better only when a person with sufficient intelligence to see enough truth communicates that truth to large numbers of people who have the intelligence to recognize it as truth, and, therefore, ensure that it is communicated to others. Then people change. Then countries change. Then planets change. Only then do they really change. Now, you may be spending every moment that you can helping to find the solution to a terrible disease, or saving our clean air and water, or doing your utmost to alleviate the drug problem, or achieving equal rights for everyone, or working to accomplish any other solution to the problems of your planet. Great! It's a noble and responsible short-term solution, and I hope that you will continue. How is it really going to do in the long term? I say again, planets change significantly for the better only when a person with sufficient intelligence to see enough truth communicates that truth to large numbers of people who have the intelligence to recognize it as truth and, therefore, ensure that it is communicated to others. Then people change. Then countries change. Then planets change. Only then do they really change. Aren't our families, countries, and planet better off now than a few centuries ago? Surely we must be. Well, if that is the apparentness to you, I have a few questions. How many fragmented families are there in your neighborhood? Do you even know the families in your neighborhood? Is it safe to walk down your streets at night? Can your friends afford to buy houses? Any people homeless? Any environmental problems? Any people dying of incurable diseases? Enough food on this planet? Ever hear of anybody starving? Any population problem? Are all of your politicians honest? Any need to lock your doors? Any pesticides sneaking into the foods you eat? Anybody having any respiratory problems? Any trouble paying for life's necessities? Ever had trouble finding work? Are statistics dropping on the mentally ill? On drug abuse? On crime? Do you trust the news media? Things can get better, a lot better. People truly can change significantly and relatively easily, but only when they get a handle on truth. They say heaven helps those who help themselves, to which I would immediately add, by thinking intelligently. The point is that just because a statement is clear to the understanding or intelligible does not make it true. Ideas, statements, allegations, conclusions, teachings, proverbs that everyone knows are true and which keep people in touch with common sense none of them are obviously true just because they are simple. If we could all see what was obvious, we all would have seen all the truth ages ago, and nobody would have any trouble in their lives, including you. Now, if anybody needs a make-up quiz, here it is. It's one question. Is the following statement true or false? Simplicity does not necessarily reflect truth. Incidentally, that was a mega-truth. Simplicity does not necessarily reflect truth. Here is something else that is true. Since most of the proverbs were false, and since the last proverb I gave you, what you don't know can't hurt you, is particularly deadly, let's counter it by latching on to one that is especially true. Do you want a few words of wisdom to live by forever that will never let you down? Light the fuse on this one. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. True. That proverb is pure, simple, and beautiful, and almost as close to truth as you can get. It's workable. It's also only about a dozen millimicrons from a statement that reflects ultimate truth. As a mega genius, I'll tell you that anyone who is not a mega genius would burn out a think fuse trying to perfect that proverb much further. It could be done, but would demand an extremely high degree of differentiation and precise application of the genius formula. All right, but only if you insist. Since you are curious, I will jiggle the proverb along for you, if you will allow me to skip over tomes of technical explanations of why that would take days. Now, if I lose any of you on this, don't worry. You do not have to understand what I am about to do to get to where I am taking you. Starting with know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, the first 4 jumps of 1 millimicron each, moving toward ultimate truth, would be know the truth, and you shall set yourself free. And then know the truth, and you shall be free. And then know the truth, and you are free. And then know the truth, and be free. The meaning of each refinement has simplified as we approach a statement that reflects ultimate truth. You can also hear simplification reflected in shorter sentences, as we would expect. Here, however, we run into slight difficulty in using the English language to express the exact concepts. That's why the next refinement will be a longer sentence. Such an obstacle might begin to occur at approximately this point with any language. Yet we can continue. Know the truth and know freedom. Now, this might even have been what was originally said. Regardless, at this point, we only have 7 millimicrons to go, and this is as far as we can go with this proverb. To move closer, we would have to make minor adjustments to the proverb's directive of know the truth by eliminating the word the. For all practical purposes, truth is a kind of absence, not a thing. Technically, if we did that, we would be changing the proverb ever so slightly into a different proverb that was closer to the truth. Should we continue? All right. Know truth and know total freedom. And then know truth and know yourself. And then know truth and understand. Now we are only 4 millimicrons from a statement that reflects ultimate truth, and it's impractical to continue. We are so close to truth that if we move 1 more millimicron toward it, the ethereal nature of truth will begin to interfere substantially. Therefore, know truth and understand is as far as this second proverb refines. To satisfy your curiosity, this would occur if we continued. Proverb begins to lose understandableness, and then proverb is about 50% dissolved, and then proverb is about 75% dissolved, and then truth. The important point here is that the proverb is an expertly cut jewel in its original form. Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It's an ancient proverb that will stand the test of time. Any clouds or feathers in this fine-cut diamond would be impossible to spot with a jeweler's loupe. It's what they would call a clean stone. There is one last proverb I would like you to consider. You can't judge a book by its cover. Now, I would not want to discourage the basic idea behind that one, but it is not true the way it is written. It is only true when it is. As I recall, the original proverb was, "Do not trust alone to outward appearances." And then it got modernized, and sure enough was readily accepted. After all, it was more simple than the original version, and therefore people decided, "Ooh, it must be true." Let's at least get the proverb back on track. May we use this instead? Things are not necessarily as they appear. We now have a firm grasp on this vital principle. Only things that are truly simple are true. The less simple or more complex something is, the less truth it can possibly contain. But just the fact that something is simple does not make it true. Now, in the next lecture, we will try the third golden key again.